Hello world and welcome back to another episode of Applied Energistics 2. It's been a while, happy new year. Welcome to the episode all about autocrafting. Now I apologise for being a bit nasally today, I am a little bit ill from my trip over the Christmas period. But let's jump straight into it. To start autocrafting, it's very good to first have this tool first, the network tool. This is made using either the quartz wrench or the nether quartz wrench, one illuminated panel, one chest, and one calculation processor. Now with this, it's just like the regular wrench, you can do all the normal things, except it has one very special property. If you hold shift and right click in the sky, you can see that we can hold up to 9 different upgrades that you can use within your AE system. So you can have 9 stacks of all of these different things. You can obviously have different ones as well, so if you use a main set, then that's alright. You can fill this completely up with speed upgrades if you wanted to, or acceleration cards. But what we have here is all, or 9 of the different upgrades, and we can have this at our hand at any point. Now, here we've got ourselves a system where I'm going to be showing off some things, but inside of here, we can actually see that in our GUI, we have these upgrades readily available with us whenever we look in a terminal, and we have this in our inventory, which is very, very cool. We can't move it out of our inventory though once we've opened up, which is a little bit strange, but that's what that is. But anyway, here we have got our first sort of start into autocrafting. So here is our start into actual autocrafting now. Up to this point, we've always used an ME terminal, which we know we can use to get things in and out of our system. But there is an upgrade to that, and that is the crafting terminal. This is your first way of speeding up the crafting process, but isn't really autocrafting itself. This is made using the ME terminal, a crafting processor, and a crafting table, and this gives us the crafting terminal. Now, when you slap this on, it works the exact same as the regular terminal. All the buttons still apply, except inside of here now we can say make things directly, and we can use it straight out of our system, as you can see here. Now you can put everything back up into here, but if you wanted to, you could return the items to the player's inventory if you wanted to down here. But this is where we're going to actually start getting into the real bits of crafting. First thing we're going to need is the pattern encoding terminal. This is made with a crafting terminal and a engineering processor. Very simple. Then we're also going to need a ME pattern access terminal. This isn't a necessity, but it makes things a lot easier in the future. This just requires an illuminated panel, a pattern provider, and an engineering processor. Now, the pattern provider is made using 4 pieces of iron, 2 crafting tables, an annihilation core, and a formation core. And I haven't finished the craft. You only get 1 of these per craft. Now, the pattern provider is a new thing when it comes to this latest version of AE. Before, it was an ME interface, which is made pretty much the exact same way, but with 2 pieces of glass instead. Now, the interface, if you're playing in older versions and you're watching this tutorial, the interface is going to do everything that the provider does, but in this version, it's 2 separate blocks. And then the last thing we're going to need are blank patterns. These are made with glass quartz, 3 glowstone dust, a Certus quartz crystal, and 3 iron. Now you're going to need plenty of these, so I recommend you get a couple stacks. And now this is what our system looks like here. We haven't got ourselves a crafting terminal on here, but we have got a pattern access terminal, which you can see here. We have got ourselves an encoder, which is already encoded with something. And then we have our crafting terminal here, which we use all our regular stuff at. We've got nothing in here, but we'll be demonstrating this shortly. Now, in order to actually autocraft things, we've got the access, but we need the machinery or software or hardware, whatever you want to call it, to actually make the things. So for hardware, we're going to need molecular assemblers. This is made using 2 quartz glass, an annihilation core, a formation core, 4 pieces of iron, and a crafting table. You only get 1 of these per craft, and this is essentially going to be anything you can do inside of a crafting table can be made inside these molecular assemblers, but we'll demonstrate them shortly. As well as that, you're going to need up to 2 to maybe 3 things. Well, you can do it with just 1 thing. First, you're going to need a crafting unit. The crafting unit is made with 4 pieces of iron, a logic processor, 2 calculation processors, and 2 pieces of ME glass cable. And this is your crafting unit. Then using the crafting unit, you can fill this with any one of your storage components. But us, we're going to show the basic tier, so we're going to use the 1K storage component to give us the 1K crafting storage. But you can actually do this all the way up to the 64 type, or I believe even up to the 128 type if you wanted to do that crafting. Something else you have as well with the engineering processor and the crafting unit is a co-processing unit. Now, this is a way of using your 1K crafting storage to use multiple units without actually needing multiple different storage craftings. But I'll explain more of that in just a second. So here we are, finally our first basic setup. Now, this is very spread apart. You could obviously condense this down quite a lot more, but here we've got our first basic setup. Now, what we have here is our terminals that we've shown off over there. This is all simply linked up to our 1K storage. This is the minimum you are going to need. You won't need any more than this to do basic crafting. And it can still be relatively fast if you just leave it on in the background. And we have this hooked up to 3 different molecular assemblers as you have here. Now in order to autocraft, you are going to need to go into these panels. So let's demonstrate how this works now. I believe they're already pre-installed, but we'll show you how to make them. So inside of this, if we go into our crafting terminal, we see that we have got a load of logs, and I've got 3 different things in here that say craft. These are our patterns that I've already set up, but the basic thing we have in here is just logs, and a lot of them. So if we move over to our pattern encoding terminal, this is where we're going to actually make our patterns. So inside our pattern terminal, we have all these buttons on the side. These patterns, or these buttons on the side, are all the exact same buttons that you get inside your crafting terminal or ME terminal, as well as your crafting status up here, but we haven't really shown that off yet. Here is where everything is brand new. By default, it may look slightly different to this, depending on the version that you're playing, but for 1.19.2, this is what we have here. We are on crafting mode, which is the only thing we're going to show off at the moment. There are other buttons as well. We've got processing patterns, we've got smithing table patterns, and we've got stone cutting patterns. But for now, we're going to just cover the crafting patterns for this section. There are other couple of things in here. We've got allow substitutes, disabled or allow. This is basically if you have any items inside of the pack that can use multiple different items, say it can use either cobblestone or deep slate cobblestone, it will the ME system will try to use one or the other in order to make it work. But if you have this disabled, then it will only use exactly what you put inside your pattern crafting here. As well as that, you have fluid substitutes, a very similar thing. If it can use different types of fluids, it will try and do it. In order to do this craft, we want to make a regular chest, a vanilla chest. Now, because we have quark, we can make the oak chest as well. This is why we're getting 3 different patterns. So, first off, we have our blank patterns up in the corner here, and we first want to make a load of planks. So we put 1 log in here, and it shows, oh yeah, we got 1 log into 4 planks. This is where we now encode our thing here, and we have ourselves a blank pattern. Now, it's a little bit confusing. You might end up with loads of these in your inventory, and you can't really see, but if you hold down shift, it will actually switch to say what the pattern is, which is very nice, so you don't have to hover over it. So that's our first one. We now have some logs. So what we have in here, we have now placed this in our first pattern provider. A pattern provider must be the point of where your basically ME system is going to export items into something else, and if it can, it will also receive items back through the pattern provider as well. So what's going to happen here is we're going to have our little pattern provider say to this molecular assembler, hey, we want to make some planks, please. And it's going to go into here, and it's going to make it all automatically in here. Now, I've got a load of speed upgrades in here to make it go really fast, but if I just take that out for now, and then we'll show how this works. So now inside the crafting table, what we have here is we've got our craft. Now what you can do is just click on this, and you can request however many you want. Now, if you don't have enough in your inventory, now we have a lot of logs here, as you can see here, so I can make quite a few things. But if I said in here, can we craft 1,000 of these, it's going to go, oh, we're missing 186 oak logs, which is why we want to make sure that this is fully stocked, and that's where your problems may arise if you can't actually fit anything in. So we have in here, let's say we want to make 200 oak planks. We do that, it starts crafting, as you can see here, it's doing 4 at a time, and it's slowly crafting these one after the other, and you can see the progress bar here. Now we can obviously slap these in here, and it ends up being a lot faster with loads of acceleration upgrades, and we are already nearly done with 200, and it's very, very quick. Now, something very quickly you can do is you can actually set these to be specifically each individual pattern if you wanted to, so you can have it only craft that specific thing, but that's something I don't really do. You really would have that for a more niche system, but it's an option. So moving on from here, we now want to make ourselves some chests. So that it's the exact same thing. We say, hey, we want a chest. Great. Now what we can do is, well, just to speed things up, we want to make this here, and then what we could do, exit that, place this in here, and now this will change to a regular chest. So now we've got our 3 patterns. In our first one, we've got our lovely planks. In our second one, we've got the making the oak chest, and in the third one, making the vanilla chests. So this is where everything's got acceleration upgrades as well, by the way. And what we can do is, if we actually click on here, what's something we can do as well, say with the oak chest, we see we have a 1 there. If we click on it, we just end up picking the item up. We can middle mouse click to actually bring up the crafting menu straight away. So you do have to sort of remember what you can make and what you can't make, but I believe that's what this +4 is here. So you can make more if needed. So what we're going to do, we're going to middle click on here, and we're going to say we want to make 200 of these oak chests. And it's saying, uh-oh, we can't do it. We don't have enough smart to do it. Now, the problem here is that we're only using a 1K storage. And every time you make something or want to do some crafts, it's going to use a certain amount of bytes. Now, these bytes are a little bit confusing, but we're going to cover them a bit more in a moment. But basically, to do all 200 of these chests, to do all these 3 machines, there's not enough bytes in this simple 1K system. So we're going to have to go a little bit less. Let's go for 10. There you go. 10's easily enough to be done. So there we go. We've got our chests being made over here. It doesn't matter. It's just going to switch between the two. It's clever enough to know which ones to go where. And now we have our 10 chests. Perfect. So now let's go a little bit over bytes and how they work. The 1K storage system can do crafts up to 1024 bytes. Now, what does that mean? If we go into our crafting system here and we say, oh yeah, we want to make some more planks, we know that the minimum we can make is 4 planks with the craft. This is going to use 22 bytes of energy. This means that the more we increase these bytes, or more we have to craft, the more complicated it gets and the more bytes it's used. So with the 1K storage, we can use up to 1024 bytes. If we go all the way to the chest, if we want to make one chest, it's 36 bytes because of the amount of craft it has to do. If we go up to 100, this is way over 1024 bytes. So in order to actually get more power out of this, we're going to need more of these storage cables or more storage crafting CPUs. Now, in order to actually get more out of this one, what we have to do is make sure it's a cuboid. So 2 together is still a cuboid, but if we have 3, as you can see, it goes all funny and doesn't work. So we'd have to do it to 4. Now, 2 should just be enough for what we want to do here. So if we go here, we go 100. There you go, 1576 bytes, exactly the same. But now we can do it because we now have essentially 2048 bytes readily available to us. So we can do that now, and it will start crafting very, very quickly. Obviously, we've still got a lot of wood, but eventually the wood, actually, it's already been used all up. There we go, the wood's going now. So here we go, we've got all 3 going. Now, this isn't any faster just because we've got 2 of these. It's just more complicated and it can run it. It's not actually any faster in itself. There are ways of, however, speeding up the process, and that is with the use of these co-processors. So here we have ourselves a block. Inside of this block, we've got one of our pattern providers, and on every side, 6 sides, we have got molecular assemblers. Now inside of there, we have got our patterns. These patterns are the exact same. We've got different ones actually. We've got a couple of different ones, but we do have the exact same wood ones as you can see here. Now what we can do here is say we want to have 1,000, sorry, not 100 of these because that's too much. Let's say we could do 50. 50 of these please, 832 bytes, that's going to start working. And as you can see, it is using multiple molecular assemblers at once. Now, the only reason it can do this is because of these co-processing units. Now, each co-processing unit essentially allows our pattern provider to use one more block. So if with the 1K storage, the pattern provider will be able to use one of these molecular assemblers. But because we have 6, we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 co-processors. That allows us to use the other 5 molecular assemblers. Now, it will try and do as many as it can adjacently and at the same time. So that's why we saw multiple planks going at the same time, multiple chests going at the same time, and it'll do as many as we can. Now, obviously, we have to make sure this is cuboid. This is where we use our blank crafting units. These can be used as sort of just fillers in order to make this into a cuboid, because if we had this without that, obviously, it would not work. And now this is where we're going to demonstrate some of the other things. Inside of here, you can see that we've got netherite chest plates and we've got stone bricks. This is where we are using these 2 buttons here. So with the smithing table, all we have to simply do is, as you would to make netherite chest, you've got to place a diamond chest plate in here as a netherite ingot, and this will give you the netherite chest plate. All you have to do is encode that and put it in the pattern provider. Now this can be done in the molecular assembler. Very similarly with the stone cutting table, all we need to do is not do that. We need to just put stone in here, select which one we want. We want stone, and then we simply say yes. It's a bit finicky, it doesn't really tell you which one you're doing. Oh, there you go, it blacks out a little bit. And then we put that inside our pattern provider as well. So if we wanted to, we can craft up to 14, since that's how many diamond chests we have in here. And it'll do that very, very quickly. Because I've got so many speed upgrades, it's probably already done. Yeah, we've already got 7. And then in here, we can do, can we do 100 of these? Yes, we can. 316 bytes, and there we go. They're going to flash in through there. Perfect. So this is something to remember. The co-processing unit is essentially a way of your pattern provider being able to use multiple machines at once, and that is the best way to speed up your crafts. Now you can make this even bigger. What you could do if you wanted to is actually get more pattern providers across here and actually place it like this. This does work. The only thing you have to worry about though is that even though this one is shared, it will try and use both of these crafts. So if this is free, it doesn't matter which pattern you have, it will try and use this one, it's shared. Now, all you have to do is make sure that you don't run out of channels, because if you run out of channels, then things are going to be a bit broken and things won't work. So just always check back to channels if you find some of these aren't working, or maybe you need a bigger crafting things, or you need more co-processors, because this can be put a lot bigger as well. This can go, I'm not actually sure what the max size is, but I haven't actually managed to find the limit yet. As long as it forms, you know you haven't reached the limit yet. So here we go on to the next thing. This is all going to be about machines, and as well as that, how to use fluids in your system. So what we have here is the exact same setup, except what I've got here is a cooking for blockhead sink with an import bus, and this is essentially importing fluids. So inside the bottom here we have got our fluid storage. That's why in here it says that we have 16,000 buckets of water. We also have a load of iron, as well as this. This is because I had a thing already set up from testing. So let's keep one in there. And then we've got a load of raw iron. We are going to be using this craft from Chemical Lab, or I think it's Chemical Lab anyway, because it's the best way to show water really. So inside of here, this is a craft that we have. So what we have here, we first want to show off our basic smelting. So we have a pattern in here for 1 raw iron equals 1 iron ingot. That makes perfect sense. We're going to be using a 1K storage system again. Now what we need to do is, in order to get this craft to work, you can't just do it in here. You can't say 1 raw iron equals 1 ingot, because it doesn't work like that. You have to go into processing. Now processing works very similarly. Now as you can see here, we've got a little scroll wheel here. You can have multiple items be processed into one thing here. Now you see we have the hammer. That is going to be our primary output, the hammer. That is where your space cut has to be. You can't do it down here, it has to be up here. Now these other 2 slots are for secondary products. Now in some crafts, say with thermal expansion or something, when you do a craft, there's a chance you can get a byproduct. Now sometimes if you know it's exactly what it's going to be, then put it in. Put the craft in. But if it's only a percentage chance that you're going to get something, don't say your secondary output. Now the reason for this is, when your thing goes to smelt or craft or whatever, if your secondary product doesn't come out, but you've said that it does, the system is going to wait indefinitely for that secondary product to come, and it's never going to. And because of that, it's going to hang. That way, you won't be able to use your CPU, because technically it's never going to complete. It's going to keep thinking it's going to want items. So if you have a 50% chance of something coming out of your smelting or your processing, don't put your secondary product in. Just let that be inside as a byproduct. But if there's a guaranteed chance, 100% chance that you're going to get a secondary item as well every time, then put your secondary byproducts in as well. But here we're basically showing 1 raw iron equals 1 iron ingot. So we just simply craft that. We have a processing pattern here, and we just simply place that in our pattern provider. Now the pattern provider knows exactly what is in this basic smelting factory. Now this is where our pattern access terminal comes in. Now I've had this on all of our other systems so far, but this is basically our way of showing all your different things that a pattern provider is connected to. So here we have the atomizer. This is what this is over here from Alchemistry. That's the mod, not Chemical Lab. And then we have the basic smelting factory. So this is a quick way of being able to access all your different things. Now, most things you can actually, if I took my basic smelting factory and chucked it in a anvil, I can actually rename it, because you might end up having 400 of these basic smelting factories and you don't know which one is what. So you can actually rename these. I'm not sure if you can do it with everything, because I've never played with Alchemistry before, but that's something else you could do. But anyway, we have this in here and we want to start making some iron ingots. So let's just make 100 of these, 316 bytes, we have enough, and that is automatically being sent into here. Now we have this spread across, and I have this configured to automatically input and output on the top, meaning that when it's finished, it's going to throw it straight back into the pattern provider and into our system. And as you can see, we've got our iron ingots going in. So that's going to keep chugging away until it's all the way at 100. That is a very simple way of doing auto crafting, but that is on demand. What you want to do is probably set stock and have your processing being done automatically, which is what we're going to show off next. But for now, let's actually show off how you would do things with fluids. So here we have the atomizer. Now, it's a bit finicky, this mod, but it's one of the only mods I have installed that allows water crafting. So inside this atomizer, we have this here, and it says, oh yeah, we can turn buckets of water into our little water flasks here. So inside of here, we have got this. We've got 32 times water. That is basically 2 buckets. Oh, sorry. We've got 2 buckets of water to turn into 32 water flasks that we have here. That is what our craft is inside this terminal here. So if we go into processing as well, what we can simply do is we can say, first we need to have one of these. Let's get one of these first. Otherwise, it's not really going to work. Right, so here we've got our stuff. Now, I know that 8 of these turns into water. Not a bucket of water though, regular water. Now, you might have to drag it in from JEI just because it's a bit finicky. And we want to do this the other way. We know that a water bucket turns into this. So, but we want 32. So what we can do is middle mouse click on our inputs and we can actually set the values of whatever we want. Now we want 2 buckets of water, that's how it's set. Sometimes it's in millibuckets, but in this case on the AE2, it's in buckets. So 2 buckets of water turns into 32 of these. Now this has to be an exact ratio because of, again, things could hang. Or you might make up more than you wanted. So this is where we have this. We now have 2 buckets of water equals 32 of that. So now whenever we craft this, we want to have that into here. We simply make it, say we want 10, but it will make 32 because that's what we've set up. So 32 is the minimum we can actually choose. 2 buckets of water, that's going to be sent into here. As you can see, it goes up to 2,000 millibuckets and it's making 32 of these. Now, why have I set this up like this? What you want to do is make sure that whenever you have a machine that doesn't auto output, you want to make sure that you export directly back into the pattern that has the original pattern in. It's not 100% necessary, but I think it's a good way of safely working because sometimes things can hang and you don't know how. So what we have here is a hopper going into a chest, and then from that chest we have an import bus going into our pattern provider. The import bus, when it stays blank, remember, will just take anything out of the chest, and that goes into our pattern provider. Now, sometimes, depending on the machine, you can put an import bus directly onto your machine, but with the atomizer, it doesn't seem to work because the input and outputs are only on the top and bottom for whatever reason. So you can't do that. Now, obviously, we can actually make this go the other way. There is another machine here that actually turns those flasks back into water, and that would be very simple to do as well. You just do the reverse here. So we want to actually see how you make these. We just see we got 1 water bucket turns into 8 here. Or sorry, half a bucket turns into 8 here. So all you would have to do is place 1 in there. We'd have to place 1 water in here, which you've got to do through JEI. And now the reason this doesn't go down into half, so you have to do it as 1, and this needs to be set to 16 because that is the minimum we can do because of our lack of able to put this to half a bucket. If we could put this to half a bucket, we could set this to 8 and it'd be a direct ratio, but for this we have to double it, and before I quadruple it for whatever reason. But then I would just put this in the other machine and it would turn the flasks back into water. It's a little bit more confusing working with water, especially when I don't have a very good mod to actually show it off or demonstrate it, but it's pretty much the exact same. You just do the regular processing inside of here, but just make sure you get your ratios right with the water and what you're making. Otherwise things can hang and it will think, uh-oh, we haven't finished the craft yet. So just be very, very careful. But that is now everything and all the different types of crafting you can do inside of this pattern terminal. But now it's time to get into things that are a little bit more advanced, and that is coming into doing things purely automatically without you doing anything on demand. Everything from now on, you've had to do an input. So it was auto crafting, it was quick, but you had to say, right, please do it for me. But this is how we do things automatically, truly. So the first system here, we have got here our regular system here. We have got no patterns in here, and we've got our iron, or we want to smelt some iron in here. This is a system that we've basically had already. We've got our items, they're going to come in through here, but we want to set up our system first. So we've got nothing coming in at the moment. So what we're going to do, we're going to flick this on, and I'm going to have items start flooding in through here, hopefully. There we go, we've got items coming in, and we want to start actually making this run. So what we would usually do is obviously we're going to have our patterns in here, and we're going to have it encoded. Now I forgot I've got these two linked, but we're happy with this system. You know how this works. You put a pattern in here, but now you want to automate it. So what we have here is our automated system. It's the exact same thing, but this isn't actually using any of our crafting storage things or pattern providers. This is the most rudimentary way of doing it, the easiest way of doing it. Here we've got things coming in very, very slowly. We probably should put acceleration cards in there. There we go, that's a lot quicker. And inside of here we've got basic things. We have got an import bus and an export bus. The export bus is exporting all the different ores that I'm actually technically mining, quote unquote. So we've got up these 7 different ores here, and they're all going into here slowly over time. Now obviously we've only got one machine, and they're all being filled up one at a time. So obviously this is it doesn't really round robin, so if you wanted to, you could change it so you have to round robin this, and that way it actually changes around what you want to have. So you might want to do it something like this, So you end up actually doing 3 different things at once, and then you have the exporter on the side, and it's just exporting everything because I have it configured to export on the side. So this is our basic way of doing things automatically. You just export whatever you want into a machine and import it back into the system. That is the best way of doing it, and it's a quick way of doing it. And it's a way you can just leave it behind. This is truly automatic. There are better ways of doing this. More advanced ways of doing this. What if you don't want everything completely smelted up? Because some things you might want to crush. You might want to crush some things. You might want to pulverize. You might want to save some stuff to have it duplicated later on, because you might not have auto doubling yet or smelting yet. So you might want to leave some raw stuff behind. This is where we move on to this next system. This next system, don't worry, it's a little bit daunting, but it's still quite simple. I'm going to go over it basically with you. First, we're going to need to change our chest to be a blue one. So let me go do that. Alright, so next up, let's show this system off. Now, it is already set up in place here, so I'm going to explain how it works first before actually turning it on. So up here, we have got a storage drawer system, a functional storage drawer system. Now, each one of these has been set to be our 7 different types, you can see into the top left, of our different types of ores that we are quote-unquote mining. Now, there's nothing in these at the moment, and when we actually turn it on, some of the icons may not actually turn on, just a simple visual bug that is. There's nothing in here at the moment. However, what's going to happen is from our ender chest, which is technically coming from our quarry or mine, that's going to come in here and go out of our storage bus. Now, our storage bus has priority. Things are going to go into here first before our storage drawers, stored storage drive systems. So everything is going to bypass our system and go straight into here. Now, from here, we've got some different things. As you can see, we've got 5 of these crafting blocks here. Now, technically, I only need 3 of them, but we have got 5 just to have more. Now, we've got this thick cable here. Now, thick cable is always good because you get more channels, which is the only reason I've used thick cable, not any particular reason. And I've got this separated here so channels don't get mixed up. The main brain that is making sure we have things auto-crafting is this right here. Now, I'm going to build this off separately just to demonstrate how it works, but it's a little bit confusing, but it's very, very handy. And what we are using here are level emitters. Now, level emitters, they are a very, very handy tool. Level emitters are simply made with a piece of redstone and a calculation processor. And what this does is exactly what it says on the tin. What you can do is when we right click on the side of here, you can set it a filter of what you would like it to actually look out for in your system. And then you can say how many in your system that you want. Now, what we have here is emit when the levels are below this level. So when there's less than 100 aluminium ingots in here, emit a redstone signal. That's essentially what this level emitter is telling me. And then what we have over here is a crafting card, a new type of upgrade. This is just using a basic card and a crafting table. Now, the crafting card is what's going to tell our ME system, hey, can you craft this for me, please? And this is where we're using an ME interface. An ME interface is just an intermediate way of actually basically telling your system to do things. It's a way of you can get things in and out of your system, which is why we have our export bus. Now, our export bus here, this is set to aluminium. So that means with our level here, this is what it's going to be set to this. Now, in our export bus, we've tweaked a couple of settings. When we have our redstone card out, this doesn't actually be affected by redstone. So we don't want this on all the time. Otherwise, we're going to have everything crafted. So in order for the level emitter to work, we need our export bus to actually have a redstone signal. So we have our redstone card in here, and we have it set to be active with signal. Then we have our crafting card. Our crafting card by default is actually set to this. Use stock items and craft while exporting. Now, we don't want this, because what this is going to do is constantly cycle aluminium ingots out of our system into our export bus and then back into our system. So we don't want that. We want it to only craft. We don't want it to use stock. So this is where we know we get our limits. So when you set this up, you want to make sure we have these two like this. So now what we're going to have here is our level emitter is basically saying we don't have enough aluminium ingots. So over here, we've got our pattern that says 1 raw aluminium turns into 1 aluminium ingot. The exact same system that we've shown off already. So that's where the basic part comes in. All we've essentially got here is a way of telling our system, we don't have enough, make it please. That's all we're doing here. Now, I'll build this separately in a moment, but I'll just turn this on to demonstrate. We've got set up iron, gold, and we've got aluminium here. So what we're going to do is we're going to flick this lever on here and we're going to have items start flooding in here. As you can see, lovely stuff. We're going to put some upgrades in here as well just to speed it up, because why not? There we go. And they're all being filtered into here, as you can see. There is stuff in the system, as you can see, but they're not actually in our drives. Only the ingots are in our drives because we haven't got drawers set up, but there's no other ores in our thing. They're all into here. So this is where I like doing it. It doesn't block up our drives, but it's a good way of keeping infinite storage because you can make these really, really big. So we've got our items coming in here and we've got our different things being emitted. Now we have under 100 on everything. Now we have this set here, emit when levels are below, of course, and that is why we've got our things being smelted over here. We've got iron over here, we've got gold over here, and we've got raw aluminium over here. Now, as you can see, this is only doing one at a time. It's not using all the slots. There is ways that we can make this to have more, and that is by simply changing our pattern provider. If we said to this 64 iron, raw iron turns into 64 ingots, it's going to push out 64 out of here at a time. And it will start smelting them. But the thing is with the level emitter, every sort of tick or second, it's going to put that craft out again. Which means that by the time you actually hit 100, you're going to have maybe 3 stacks of iron, raw iron in here, ready to be crafted. Because this only turns off when we hit 100. So what will actually happen is you'll end up with 100 plus whatever 64 times 3 is. I'm not ready to do the maths. So you'll end up with more than you actually asked for. So this is why I just have these patterns as pretty low, and you just do these passively over time. If you need it desperately, you'd probably have a second system for on demand. So that's where you want things to be done very quickly because it will send out large amounts and use all the spaces. But if you want things to be done passively with a dedicated level, this is how you do this. So now let's show you how to build this machine itself. First, we're going to need our enemy interface. We're going to need 3 export buses. We're going to need to have some flux smart cable. We're going to need to have a level emitter. And that is everything we're going to need. So from this, obviously, you're going to need your basic controller stuff as well. So first off, we've got this. Let's get a creative one. There you go, creative energy cell. And we have our controller. We have our drive. And then let's actually get some drives ourselves. There we go, we have our drives. From this, we're going to come out. And this is where we're going to have our 3 points. We're going to have our 3 level emitters here. You don't want to have your 4th level emitter here because this is going to be our connection to our interface. This is our only connection into this system because the rest of it is actually technically a second system. So this is very simple. We now want to have our export buses on all 3 sides here. And we want to make sure we have all the appropriate cards. So let's get ourselves a redstone card. We want to get ourselves a crafting card. I'm going to put these into our different slots here. So we want one here, we want one here. And you can see these are the defaults. We want to have that as active with signal. And we want to have this to only use our crafting items. We don't want to use up stock. So we place these in all 3. And there we go. That's our stuff there. Next, we want to throw this over like this. And that's now linked up. This is our own sort of subnet system here. That's not really connected to this system. But as you can see, this is only using up to 1 channel at the moment. That's because it's only connected to our ME interface at the moment. But now we want to set this to be all our different things. So what we could do, just for now, is make this system with molecular assemblers. Let's do that this way instead. So what we want to do here, we'll just get 2 of these. Let's get some molecular assemblers. Right now, so what I've quickly set up here is with the molecular terminal here, we've got ourselves a way of crafting a load of planks. Now we can do the same thing here. Now we've got this system set up, we want to set it. So in this first one, we want to say oak planks. We want oak planks to be made. So we have our crafting card set up, we have our oak planks, blah de blah. Now we need to set our level emitter. We want to say, how about we want to first, we want to put oak planks. We want to emit when levels are below. So we want to have that there. And we want to say, let's say we want 250 oak planks at all times. So now we have this, basically, this is permanently emitting to this, and this is basically saying, we want this power, we want this to be made. But now what we have to do is actually link these 2 systems together. So all we have to do is place this 1 block, and then what should happen is that this should start telling our system, hey, we want to have our oak planks start being made. And then oak planks should start being made just like this. It's a little bit slow because we don't have obviously any upgrades in here, but if we put our upgrades in here, as you can see, it's a bit faster. And now everything's auto being made. So what's going to happen is when we reach 250, what's going to happen is this level emitter is going to switch off, which is any minute now. And there we go, we've switched off. Now we've gone 2 over because obviously we're making 4 at a time. And obviously, clearly, 4 doesn't go into 250 very nicely. But now we have our stock here. Now, if we took some out, if we didn't do that, if we took a stack out, it will automatically start making more again. It will take a couple of seconds and it will speed up slowly over time. As you can see here, it's making them again. It just jumped up there and it's slowly going to reactivate. As you can see, the light's on and we're making again. It's very slow for some reason, but it is making them. That's probably because we just got the 1K system. But something to note, now that we've actually added this connection onto here, we have used more channels. As you can see, we've used 4 channels here. So the best thing you could probably do is actually add this to the other side here and do this the other way. So it's something like this, not like that. And then as you can see, we've gone up to 7 already because we've got the interface. But if we added the rest on, we'd go all the way up to 8. So probably the best thing you could do is probably, you know, do some hard first and then go off and split it off however you want it to be. That way you'll get 32 channels. So you could do up to 27 different things all off one dense cable. But that's how that works. I hope that makes sense. I hope I've explained that well. If you copy it exactly as I have done, you shouldn't have a problem. Just make sure before you connect this PowerPoint here, you have all your different things set up. You don't really want to be adding later, otherwise things can get broken. Now, the only reason that I've got 5 of these storage things here is because of the bytes issue. I could just have 1 of these be here and have a bigger storage point, but we might want to have up to some demand as well, because basically because of this crafting status, if we only had 1 of these, we can only do 1 craft at a time, but because we have 5 of these, we can do up to 5 crafts, which means these 3 can go at the same time, and I can do 2 auto crafts if I want. So that there is true passive auto crafting, both through processing and through crafting. Obviously you can make this with your array as well, and you could set up as many things as you wanted to be automatically done. Now we do have a third way of auto crafting things here. This is a very similar system as well, except we actually have 2 different systems here that are separated. Now we're using a very cool technique here where we're using a ME interface and a storage bus, so the storage bus can see this whole system here, but this system is not going to affect this system. Now, what do I mean by this? If we look inside this crafting terminal, we currently have nothing. There's nothing in the system, but we are using all of our different lines up at the moment. We are using up to 7 different channels at the moment just on this system. And over here, we're using one channel to link this entire system here. And you can see there's no controller over here, so it doesn't even matter. And what we want to do is we want to put this ender chest here, and we are going to turn this system back on. We're going to break that there. We're going to turn this on. And we're going to have items come in now through our import bus. They're going to come into here slowly. So again, we're going to put some upgrades in here, and they're going to start filling up our storage here. Now what we have here is our export system. Now this is automatically doing our raw iron, our raw gold, and our raw aluminium, and it's obviously filling everything up as quick as this can pull items out. So what we could do if we wanted to, we could have this system over here to set it on a limit, but for this sort of system here, you really want to have the exporting. So here we've got all our different items, and we can pull these out, of course, but over here we're seeing that we have all these different items as well. However, if we said we start putting a load of cobblestone in here just for argument's sake, on this side we can't actually see the cobblestone. That's why this is a completely different system. This only works one way. The storage bus can see this system, but this system can't see anything that's in these drives, which is a good way of clearing things out. We could have our separate drives and all our storage over here, and that could be a whole separate system. It's not going to clog up our main stuff, as you can see here. So we could have whatever we wanted to in this one and still see the other side. Now, the only problem is that if we take our copper out, then we put our copper back in, it may put the copper into these drives. So that's something, the only annoying thing, you can't put things back over here, but that's not the end of the world. Quick post Mondays jumping in here where I said you couldn't put things back across. You can, but you would just have to set this to be a higher priority. So here we've got in here 1141 copper. If I now take this copper out of here, which hopefully is taking the copper out of there. No, there's 222, but never mind, I'm never going to do that. Now I put it back, it's still going to be the same. It's gone over here, and inside of here now we have got less copper. There you go, I've just taken it out, and then if I put it back in, it's completely taken out. That's because it's got priority to go through the storage drawers first. But we obviously have these coming in, and these are automatically smelting. Now these don't actually have a way of coming out, which is why we're going to need importers as well, but that's very basic, of course. Now I say it's simple, but we have a limited amount of channels here, of course, so I would have to get rid of that one in order to actually get 2 import buses on here, because I don't exactly have enough channels to do all 3, so I can't actually export the last one. But what we can see is that if I actually configure this to be export out front, we start getting some ingots. There we go. The ingots don't go into here either, or do they? They must do. But yeah, that's how that works. If you have a separate system, you can only go up to 8 channels. I believe that's due to the interface's problem here, because I just tried using dense cables. It didn't really work out. Maybe if you spread this out a bit, it could work, but 8 channels is sort of all you're limited to. Now, there are 3 more things that are very handy when it comes to auto-crafting. The first one is the storage monitor. This is made using a level limiter and an illuminated panel, and it will simply show you what is in your system. Now, these bottom ones here are actually different. These top ones are your storage monitors. All we have to do here to set it is simply, we'll just place this down, get a storage monitor, get a new item in here, and then we can right click, and then we can actually set the device to stay what it is. So if you hold shift and right click on it with your bare hand, it will lock it. As you can see here, we've got this new design on here. It will lock and it will never change, because if this turned to 0, or if you actually right clicked on it with another block, it will switch. If it turns to 0, I believe it just actually says 0. But down here, we have something slightly different. These are conversion monitors. This is made using a storage monitor, a formation core, and an annihilation core, and it works the exact same way. You set it up the exact same way. You simply place it down on the cable. Now, I have these locked already, as you can see here, so it doesn't break. But if I go into survival mode here, what we can do here is do this the similar way as storage drawers. If we left click on here, we take a stack out. If we right click, we put a stack in. If we hold shift and take one item out. This essentially is a quick way of getting things in and out of your system, like storage drawers. Obviously, it would take a lot of channels and it would be a massive wall to see everything in your system, but it's a good way of seeing items that maybe you are using quite often and quite regularly to just quickly take them out of the system if you so needed, or maybe you just wanted a couple of crafting or building blocks to place over here. It's very, very handy. Now, the last item is the crafting monitor. This is made using a crafting unit and a storage monitor. And this is very, very cool because pretty much all it does is it tells us what our CPU is currently doing. So what we can do is we can actually replace this with our crafting unit. And as you can see there, we have that crafted. What we can do now is say, hey, we want to make 100 of these, which we can't do. When am I going to learn? We want to make 50 of these. What's going to happen is this is going to say, hey, look, this CPU is making these chests. So if we had, say, 400, or maybe not 400, if we had a hell of a lot of CPUs all dotted around the area, but we didn't know which one was doing what, this crafting monitor will tell us what CPU is actually doing what. So instead of renaming this whole system, which you can do, I believe you can rename some of these blocks so you have CPUs with specific names, but this way you actually see what is doing what. Well, guys, that is everything to show off when it comes to auto crafting in Applied Energistics 2. I hope you did enjoy. If this video helped you in any way, shape or form, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It would really help me out, and ring the bell button to stay notified when these videos go live. Been very sorry that I'm a bit nasally today. As I said, that I am a little bit ill still from my holiday, but none to worry there. But until next time, guys, Happy New Year.